Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and welcome to the subscriber drawing request series, where you guys go ahead and leave a suggestion as to what I should draw next inside of this series, and I go ahead and take a look at them, and just take a look at what my favorites are, and then I go ahead and submit those drawing questions onto Twitter. My Twitter handle is on the screen right now, so if you guys want to follow me so that you guys can actually vote on what it is that I'm going to draw next, follow that, at Orphanlast. That way you guys can vote on it, and there is a chance that if you make a drawing suggestion, there is a chance that I will draw it. There is a chance, but there are, people have different, motivations to do different things. Like, for example, when I sit down and draw, I don't really sit down and draw with the motivation of I want to use my sense of humor. That's something that's just not there. So, if you guys want to make a silly suggestion, I probably won't draw it. I also don't really want to draw things that are copywritten because, people can give you a stupid copyright infringement at any point in time. And, there's also the whole thing of, maybe you guys might want something like what Draw with Jazza did fairly recently, where he actually made it into a coloring book. Like a whole bunch of his art challenges into a coloring book. Now, I'm not really interested in random art challenges, to be honest. Those sorts of things really don't interest me. There's not very many occasions where I'm making a sculpture and I think, you know what this sculpture needs? It needs more garbage. So an art challenge oriented around making an appealing sculpture out of garbage doesn't really appeal to me. That seems completely pointless to me. I mean, it made an okay video for Jazza, but really 99% of it wound up being styrofoam, and styrofoam's easy to come by and it's easy to make that look appealing. But I don't know, I think that there's this idea that, okay, well, if you're able to master a million different types of art challenges, then that must mean that you're a really good artist. But on the flip side, it might actually just mean that you're, a jack of all trades, master of none. But in the case of Draw with Jazza, I think he's a pretty good artist. I think he's a master of a number of different techniques. But I just, he's into the art challenges thing. I'm not. So I'm just not into the same stuff that he is. I don't know. There's some things that are funny that bring up a really funny image in my head, but I have no desire. I would like to see it, but I have no desire to actually be the guy that draws that weird, silly idea. So I'm just letting you guys kind of trying to let you guys know what sort of things that are more likely to show up in the poll. Okay, so drawing suggestions that are just off the wall, it's cool. It'll make me laugh and all that, but probably if it's just so ridiculous, I'm probably not going to show up in the poll. And if it doesn't show up in the poll, it's not going to be something that I actually wind up drawing. If that all makes sense. I'm just trying to let you guys know what my tastes are. The original Star Wars things, I remember being a kid and drawing the original Star Wars characters and such like that. And I used to kind of have a knockoff version of Star Wars that I thought that I would be able to make. I actually wrote an entire book around the characters that I created that was kind of my knockoff Star Wars. But I was kind of trying to congeal Star Trek and Star Wars into one universe sort of thing, yet have enough unique attributes about it. But in the end, the book wound up sucking. It really sucked. So that book's never going to get published. But so these are the sorts of things that I'm interested in. and letting you guys know what I'm interested in will help you guys know what is more likely to get voted on and be put, wind up being something that I draw. Now, what I said inside of the very first subscriber drawing request video is still true. Like the whole point of the subscriber drawing request series is to give me a license to experiment. Okay, which also means that I am going to wind up doing a lot of things that make me feel really uncomfortable. And that's exactly where I am. This is exactly where I wanted to be with this series. It is the closest thing that I will probably ever have to an art challenge that on my series that happens to be similar to Jazza. Like, that's what this subscriber drawing request series is to me. It's the closest thing to the drawing challenges crap that Jazza has. Okay, I'm not, I really liked Jazza's channel when it was primarily animation centric, but now, like, I still like his channel. I like his art challenges and stuff, but it's just not something that I would wind up doing. The sort of art challenges that I'm interested in is more like different approaches to making an image. Like, for example, this is something that I learned this week, actually, and I wish I actually did a little bit more research. Now, you can make a grayscale image with doing a whole bunch of line work and kind of doing things the way that you see me doing it right now, I guess. But, what seems like the most effective way is where you start out with a really big brush, and then you make some really appealing silhouettes. And then once you accomplish that, you then start gradually making your brush smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and refining the detail gradually as the brush gets smaller and smaller and smaller until the brush is fairly small and you're actually doing your line work as the last step. And in the end, it doesn't really, it winds up having a lot more photorealism. And so that's, I wish I did that approach at a grayscale image rather than, go after the line work first. But, we live when we learn, and such like that. That's some of the reason why the line work is on a layer near the top that's above all of my grayscale stuff, and why I turned off the red alpha. That's why it all looks red, and that's why I turned the opacity so low. I was thinking I might be able to get rid of all of my line work, but just by working with values and such. But this late in the game, it just seems like no, that it's not going to work out, especially since it seems like when you work with a big brush on Krita, all of a sudden the whole computer lags out for every single brush stroke. And so if it just seems like, okay, well, I should get the the thumbnail looking really good, and I actually initially tried to do silhouettes, but I tried a particular workflow that didn't work for me. I actually tried to do the whole silhouette thing initially, but crap happens, I should have just persisted until it started working for me, but I have to output a video every week, and so sometimes that pressure kind of influences the workflow that I wind up doing. But that's fine, because even still, that puts me into a position that I want to be in with this series, which is, being uncomfortable, having a license to experiment, and sometimes that experiment winds up being unpredictable, and that's fine, but as the flip side is, it really does make me feel uncomfortable, because 9 times out of 10 when I'm drawing an image or painting an image or whatever it is, I can actually envision what the final product of the image is going to be, and it just winds up being a 1, 2, 3 step and then finished. It's just going through the motions, whereas I don't want it to be that way with the subscriber drawing request series. I want to be able to try out as many different like respected approaches, like whether it happen to be techniques that are kind of universally shared among, concept artists or something like that, or professionals that I happen to respect. Whereas like like somebody who specializes in something like cubism is never going to be hired to do concept art, for example. Like, so in my opinion, it just seems like, okay, well, cubism is kind of pointless. You can't really use it for anything, productive. I don't know. The creativity of cubism seems like it's limited to just the singular image, and it doesn't really tell a story beyond the image, because it's never going to be able to help make a motion picture, for example. Things like that. So to me, cubism is like, I don't know. Like, it seems like everyone that's into cubism, they're like, oh yeah, it's all about freedom and liberty and like just feeling free. And yet it's such a limited medium that, like, even if I enjoyed looking at it, which I don't, it just seems like you can't do anything with it. Like you're so limited with what you can do with it. If it was so respected, then you'd be able to make, it would be able to help make motion pictures or things like that. I don't know. Am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense. So here you kind of see me kind of thinking, okay, I want to put in a lot of gradients, and I still want to put in a lot of gradients. Now, I know that you don't want there to be a whole bunch of contrast inside of your background, and I wound up putting in a lot of contrast inside of the background here. But the idea was, okay, well, I'll just make the background, put in a lot of contrast, and then after the fact, dull down the contrast, it shouldn't be that difficult to do. You should be able to just do that with some of the filters and such like that. It's not that difficult to kind of reduce the amount of contrast in the image. But it just wound up being so busy. And what I'm thinking I need to do is I need to find a bunch of boxes. Just find 100 boxes or something and just stack them unpredictably all over the place, and pinpoint a light source or something like that, and then desaturate the image so that it's black and white. And then I just need to do a life painting in grayscale of all of these boxes and find out how to get all of these boxes that are in their natural state, where if all of them are exposed to the light equally, they're all the exact same value, and how to get them when they're all stacked together inside of a natural environment and stuff like that. How to get it so that while painting in grayscale, how to make it so that you're able to distinguish the difference from one box to another box. And so that's something that I wound up struggling with quite a bit with this video. And I know that there are a number of people that are subscribed to me that like watching me. I think some of it is because they just want to see an up-and-comer. And I don't know. I don't really understand why they would watch me, like why a professional would watch me, but they have reasons. If you guys that are more familiar with grayscale paintings that are seeing me doing this, I mean, to me this looks horrible. Now, to some people, I know they're going to look at this and be like, oh, that looks wonderful, but to me it looks like that optical illusion of the never-ending staircase. And although I love that image because of the never-ending staircase, the actual, shifting values of that image and the perspective, other than the never-ending staircase, I hate everything about that image except for the never-ending staircase itself. If it wasn't for the never-ending staircase, that image would be a piece of crap. And that's the same thing with a lot of the optical illusion sort of images out there. Like, if it wasn't for the optical illusion, it would be a piece of crap image. And so that's the reason why I don't like this. For some reason, it looks like the same sort of perspective as lined out inside of that image. And I looked at a number of grayscale images and different approaches that they had for the edges of the cubes and such, and some of them actually put on the edges of the cubes a lighter value, but that just wound up being line work. And then when I actually turned off my line work layer, which is red at the moment, just to re-emphasize that, it looked terrible. And so I just kept looking at this. I'm like, okay, so I'm trying all of these different techniques to add all of these gradients, and it's not working. And so eventually I just decided, okay, I'm going to go with my first approach, where it's just like laying down my flats, the equivalent of that. And it winds up kind of looking kind of cell shaded throughout the entire image, but in the end, that's what wound up looking good for the background. Versus this, which is just a mess. I don't like anything that I see on the screen right now. This looks horrible to me. Other than that big sheet that has the texture on it, and and it kind of puts shade on all of these other boxes and such like that. Other than that, that's like the only thing that I like about all of this. But ultimately, eventually, I get rid of all of this gradient crap that you see me experimenting with. It wound up being really time consuming, and it didn't look very good in my opinion. And I'm the artist; I make the ultimate say as to what's in the image. Ultimately, there's no wrong way, I guess, as my art teacher in high school used to say, to make it. But you are the artist. You need to be critical of your work. If you think something looks like crap, you need to be willing to say it looks like crap, no matter how much time you spent on it. And I spent a lot of time on these gradients. And throughout the entire time that I was working on this week, I wound up having a lot of emotions of hopelessness and such like that. And again, I have no idea how this image will look in the end. Which is very uncomfortable. That's a very uncomfortable place to be in as an artist. It really is. But that's where I want to be. That's fine. It's fine if you're in that situation. You don't need to know how everything turns out all the time, every time you set out to draw an image. And the reason why I say that is because if you only draw things that make you feel comfortable, it's just because you're in a comfort zone, and you're just, you're using that comfort zone as a crutch, and you're never going to get better, if that makes sense. You need to be willing to experiment, give yourself the license to experiment, and allow yourself to be kind of scared about the outcome of an image. At least that's my opinion. I really do think that is a really healthy approach to looking at your artwork and trying to get better. You need to give yourself a license to experiment and make mistakes. Now, I am happy that this is a digital image, because all of the stuff that I did in the upper right corner of the screen with all of the gradients and stuff, if I did that on a canvas or on a piece of paper, I'd be dedicated to doing that thing that looks terrible in that upper right corner of the screen on the entire image, just simply because I started doing it, and there's no way that I'd be able to erase all of that and successfully erase all of it. There'd always be some remnant of it if I went that route on the page. So I decided, okay, well, I'll just, with this being digital, I am allowed a lot of freedom, in the sense that, if I make a mistake, I'm able to get rid of that mistake 100%. Now, I see that as a mistake. Now, some people may like it, like I've said earlier, and that's fine. Now, some of the reason why earlier on in the video, why you didn't see me making a lot of selections is because, in Photoshop, you're able to easily save your selections by making them a channel in the Channels tab, which is connected to the layers tab, like the layers panel, and it doesn't seem like there is a channels tab inside of Krita, but it doesn't seem as versatile as it is in Krita. I mean, in Photoshop, it doesn't seem as versatile. And you know, I make these sorts of statements, and in my last video, I made statements like this, where I criticize Krita, and I posted that video on a Krita subreddit, and it got a negative vote. Eventually, it got an upvote again. Like, I didn't get a million votes on it or anything like that, but it got a downvote initially. And I can only assume that that's because, you know, a developer possibly felt hurt. I'm not saying this stuff. I'm not criticizing Krita to just be a jerk. Like, I use the software. I recommend people to use the software. I'm one big infomercial about Krita. I love Krita. It's awesome. But that doesn't mean that it's not without its faults. Now, Krita has a lot of things that I love that are even actually better than Photoshop. I've said that multiple times. Now, since I happen to love Krita, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to, you know, love every single aspect of it, if that makes sense. Like, there are things about Krita that are genuinely flawed, and they need to be addressed. And so saving selections inside of Krita. Now, the only way that it has been described to me on how to save a selection inside of Krita is to just make the selection, fill it with a color, and then just, you know, have it inside of your layers panel for forever. And when you need it, just select opaque. Having it inside of your channels is so much better inside of Photoshop. It's just so much easier. Because you have it categorically assigned to something outside of your layers. What's in your layers will eventually, in most likelihood, show up on your final image. Whereas something in your channels, it doesn't necessarily have to even show up on the image. So you know selections can be saved there. So if there is a way to save your selections in the channels, I would love to know that. But so far, it just seems like the channels tab is just really generic inside of Krita. And that's fine. It's just I wish there was just more to it than just that, so that, you know, I can merge layers confidently, and yet I can go ahead and go back, you know, go back to that saved selection, and then like apply a gradient to a series of colors and such like that. These are things that like, even though there are a few things inside of Krita that make it so that, you know, there's you know, non-destructive editing, there are things inside of Krita for that. There's not much of that, and so it causes me to struggle and hesitate with variously different decisions, and even regret variously different decisions in the creation process. So, like, I know Krita is not, you know, geared towards just being a Photoshop clone. That's what it was initially, but eventually, you know, the team behind it wound up deciding that their main focus is making it the ultimate painting tool. And that's cool. I agree with them. That's a admirable pursuit, and, you know, I use the program for a reason. It's a great painting tool, but there needs to be more non-destructive editing things. And again, there are things inside of Krita that are better than Photoshop. Being able to, you know, adjust your sensitivity of your brush strokes and stuff like that, and you know, I don't know. It's hard to really say. Just, there's so many different things that I love about this program, but there's also so many things that I wish that it had. And whatever. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here, and I'm sorry about that. But you know, it's kind of confusing to really know what to say because I'm pretty much doing the same thing throughout the entire video. I'm just applying different colors of gray and such, and at this point I was just so frustrated that, oh great, another video where I'm just focusing on the background. So I decided, okay, I need to lay down, you know, a high contrast like value for the mouse. At least the mouse. I need at least some work done with the mouse. And, you know, that's what I focused on there and all that good stuff. So that, you know, it's not just me focusing on the background. So I think in the next video in this series, you know, the Warrior Mouse series, I'm going to be focusing on really refining the values on the mouse and the snake and trying to make them look really elegant or something. Hopefully I can find some sort of workflow that I can really make this look nice. And yeah, I don't know, like I said, if it sounds like I'm frustrated right now, it's because I am, because I have no idea how this is going to turn out, and I hope it turns out well. I hope it turns out better than the demonic warrior pug image. The way I colored that image, I kind of go back, look at the JPEG image, and although I still like what I did with it, there are a number of things with the colors that I wish wasn't so obnoxious and even what I would deem as unprofessional. But we live, we learn, we do what we do. Like I said, coloring my images in the Noble Frugal Studio series, it's new to me, and so, you know, it's just step by step trying to find what workflow works best, and that's it. I'm trying to find the workflow that works best for me, and hopefully grayscale works best for me. I really do. I've seen enough tutorials and such like that it feels like whether or not I do it the silhouette method or whether I do it with just lines and stuff like that, hopefully I'll be able to figure out a way how to make everything look so much better with grayscale and stuff like that. Because I don't know, it just sounds like, I don't know, just something about it appeals to me. Making a value image, wind up making it look like it's made out of color and everything. It fascinates me. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys didn't like it, please like, share, and subscribe anyways. There's a lot of work that goes into making these videos. And if you guys would like to take a look at any of my other videos, feel free to click on any of them that are appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.